Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater, and I'm hanging out today with Eric from Release the Snyder Cut. How you doing, man?
How you doing, Matt? Great to be on here.
Yeah, thank you very much for reaching out because I talked about this the other day, and I guess
Yeah.
I didn't read far enough into the GoFundMe to catch one aspect of it.
Yeah, because like you literally stopped reading just before the part where I wrote, by the way, in this section, we are going, half of the money goes to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And to be fair to you, none of the other folks that reported on us mentioned that until we pointed it out. Like Heroic Hollywood didn't mention it until we pointed it out in their comments, and they went and to their credit, they're like, oh crap, you're right, and then added it. So
well, I was just reading up comicbook.com was covering it, and they didn't mention it at all.
No, they didn't.
I just think that because I was like, reading through it, I'm like, okay, it's just going to get into the perk stuff after this, and that's, it's not. I don't really, the perks not really be that interesting. But I think that potentially you may want to move that up into the higher up into the thing, because it is a good thing. It's a very good thing. Going and raising the money or donating it to the foundation because of Zack Snyder's daughter, which is absolutely tragic.
And also another clarification, like you were mentioning the stuff you're doing for the boots on the ground, that stuff is not covered by the crowdfunding.
Okay.
Like what that's self-funded. Like some of us, like we're like providing our materials and boots on the stuff for the boots on the ground. Like and it's going to be and the reason is like it's pretty cheap. Like simple stuff like printing out some flyers. We're going to be printing out a whole bunch of flyers, but the great Chris Wong Swenson is like helping fund that, and we're also like making like signs and good stuff. Like it's stuff that we could do, that we would be doing at conventions anyway on an individual basis, but the difference is we're coming together to make them bigger.
Yeah. And Comic-Con is definitely a big venue to do it. Getting the banner overhead. I actually was, a funny thing is, a couple years ago, there was the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, and Will Wheaton was running his mouth on Twitter as usual. So I run the idea about crowdfunding a banner to fly overhead of Comic-Con to say "Shut up, Wesley."
Wesley.
And I was heavily considering it. I was heavily considering it for a few. And then I'm lazy.
Yeah, and also if you notice, excuse me, but if you noticed this banner, well, one of the big differences between this banner and the banner that flew by Warner Brothers Studios, this banner is going to fly around the convention center for 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I was reading that in here. That's going to be a lot of people. You guys are doing the banner on the Friday of the convention, right? That's correct.
Okay. And by a curious stroke of irony, I mean, you remember a year ago when the Wall Street Journal published that article about the movement, and they pretty much totally snubbed us, pretty much totally like scoffed at us pretty much.
Well, a lot of people in Hollywood have done that, which I think is a complete disrespect to what fans have been trying to say. But
yes, but wrap your head around this. That Friday, the day the banner flies, is the 1-year anniversary of that article.
Nice.
What glorious irony. Like someone in the chat in a chat when we were putting this together pointed that out, and it was like, oh my word, it's glorious. It's like fate. It's meant to be.
It's definitely going to be. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that wouldn't it be, and this is just my own personal observation, because I don't know. Will you be attending Comic-Con this year?
No, I won't be, unfortunately. I would love to, but it's not like I have the money on hand to do it.
No, I hear you. I used to live in San Diego, so I've gone multiple times. This will be my 19th time going in 2 months. But the reason why my observation would have been, wouldn't it have been better to do it Saturday morning prior to? No, it wouldn't. Well, I say Saturday morning only because the Hall H line for
No, it wouldn't have. And I'll tell you why. Because the Hall H, like by that time, that morning, when they're all getting ready to go in, they're pretty much, they're going to be distracted. They're going to be in, we actually looked at, there's going to be like some canopies that they're underneath, they're going to be looking at. So it's not like they're going to be looking at it.
The canopies, the canopies are one aspect of it. So here's the thing. And this is why, this is, again, I've done this 4 years. The canopies there's only like 4 canopies, and that is
Yeah.
just the first bit of the line. The line
The
itself will go all the way down to
Yes.
Seaport Village. We're
And
talking
here's the
like
thing.
multiple
Here's the
thousands of
thing.
people.
That line is going to start being formed Thursday night or on Wednesday night, I believe.
Yeah,
So
parts
so
of it are.
everyone's going to be, so by the time of Friday at noon, people are pretty much are going to be there. And there's going to be like some going back and forth. And also, it's not just for them, it's for the whole convention to see. Like,
Sure.
and at lunch, actually, oddly enough, you brought up Saturday morning. That was my original plan, Saturday morning, just before things open up. But we were discussing it, and people say, well, and people brought up those points, and they said, well, you know, at lunchtime, everyone's pretty much out of the indoor, they're outdoors right now, because you know there's going to be a lunch break of the convention or something, at least from what I've heard. But they're saying, but we were debating whether or not what would be best. Should we do it on a Saturday morning? Should we do it on Friday at noon? We actually were thinking of doing 2 at one point, one at Saturday morning, one at Friday at noon. But then some people, like especially the Nerd Queens, they're members of the group, but they were like big name Snyder Cut folks who actually have worked at Comic-Con, and they're the ones who are like the hardest on. No, it's probably better to do Friday at noon.
Yeah, well, I mean, any way you look at it, it's going to be fine. It's going to get there, 150,000 people over the span of the 5 days. It's not only just a convention center. You know, you've got both Hiltons, the Westin, the Marriott, the Hyatt. I mean, like all of Gaslamp, Petco Park. It's everywhere with Comic-Con. It's absolutely everywhere.
San Diego's like built around Comic-Con, isn't it?
You know, it feels that way. And the thing is, the way the city operates when it comes to Comic-Con is absolutely terrible, because they're supposed to keep doing these expansions that just, like, I'm not kidding. Like the last expansion that I recall failed because right before the vote, one of the councilmen slipped in a measure in order to build a new Charger stadium downtown, which can't facilitate it. Yeah,
gotta love pork.
And it failed, and then now the Chargers are no longer in San Diego, so you know, on that one. But I mean, Comic-Con is I've been attending it since 2000, when it had like 30,000 people. You know, it's now it's insanely huge, so there's a lot of people that are going to be there.
I will tell you what we are doing that Saturday morning.
Okay.
At Saturday morning, outside the doors of Hall H and outside the line, that some of us, like some of the boots on the ground, like are getting together. And do you remember way back when there was that miniature protest outside the doors of Warner Brothers to do the Release The Snyder Cut thing?
Yeah.
And they had that banner.
Yeah.
They had Release The Snyder Cut. So what we're doing is we're having like so our boots on the ground who are not already going to, we're not going to Hall H, but like those boots on the ground, they are going to be outside the doors, outside the line, holding that banner, and you may be holding some signs, and they're going to be waving to the people as they come into to Hall H.
Okay. Yeah, there's a good spot for that.
It's almost like that, and the banner in particular are like nice little homages to the history of our movement, if you think about it. Just bigger.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess my question is, like, how did you get involved in the Snyder Cut? The whole kerfuffle, I guess, is a good way to call it.
Well, it's funny. For me personally, I was always like a fan of the DCEU, certainly ever since Man of Steel. And Batman v Superman, oddly enough, I've never seen the theatrical cut. I've only seen the Ultimate Edition. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to see the theatrical cut. That does not exist for me.
No, don't. No.
Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry. I have it on DVD, but the only reason I do is because it's included in the package. I have not seen it, and I don't plan to.
There's no point.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why? Like, just to see a couple of tweaked scenes to fit the theatrical cut? No. But
no, it's not tweaked. They straight remove scenes. It's like they remove 40 minutes.
But like, I'm referring to like, changing like what Clark is seeing on TV to a story about the Batman, and like the scene of him like flying to Lois. We see him flying to like save Lois. Oh. But aside from that, is like, I'd become such a fan. I was so stoked for Justice League, and then we started hearing that it was wait a minute, it's being like, well, Zack Snyder was gone, but they're bringing Joss Whedon in to just do the pickups. Okay, I can live with that. And then I heard they were cutting it down to 2 hours. Like, what?
Yeah.
Last we heard it was 3 hours, and now you're cutting it down to 2. It was like, well, what is this? And that, but then they're all saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's still Zach's vision. We're just making it shorter for screenings. Don't worry, don't worry." And then it comes out. And when it came out, like, look, I saw it 3 times in theaters, but the reason I did was because I was afraid that if Justice League didn't do so well, they would reboot. And I hate the idea of rebooting this universe when I've come to love how these characters have been crafted. But when it comes to Justice League itself, I really liked it at first, but the more I thought about it and the more I heard about what we lost, the less I liked it. And pretty soon, like, I found myself, I found Chris Wong Swenson's channel, Ping Pong Flick Show. I found Film Junkie, I found Lantern, I found Totally Random, and I found Film Gob, and all these the pro Snyder, the pro DCU YouTube channels, and I became more and more motivated to get involved in this, and so, like, I joined the Snyder Cut movement on Twitter, which is actually why I joined Twitter in the first place, because like, they're saying, okay, we're going to do a big event where we're going to, like, tweeting Release the Snyder Cut. Okay, I'll take part in it. So I set up my Twitter account, and I'm pretty sure the first thing I ever tweeted was Release the Snyder Cut. # Release the Snyder Cut.
That's pretty motivating to get into Twitter in order to
absolutely
to protest or to make a movement for a cut of a film. I mean, like, I was, it's kind of funny because I went into the DCEU back in Man of Steel expecting to not like it at all, because I saw the trailers for Man of Steel and didn't care for any of it. And then I saw the movie and I was like, well, I was wrong. This is great. And then, but with Batman v Superman, I was so excited. Like, it came out the day before my birthday in 2016. My girlfriend, like, was like, oh, she knew I really wanted to see it, so we went to go see it. And then she was really excited to see how I was going to react to it. And then I was like, but then the extended edition came out, and the ultimate cut, and I was like, wow, they finally actually, oh my God, there's a plot here. Like, there's a story. This should be, keeping this in line. But the problem with it is, though, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'm it's like, and it's so sad that what is, like, Warner Brothers under Sujihara do with BVS? Oh, it's a great film. Now cut it down so we can have more screenings. Okay, and then it doesn't do so well. People complain. They release the Ultimate Edition, and so many of the people who complained turn around and says, "Oh wow, this is great. This is a great movie now." But what does Warner Brothers do? Do they learn from that and just let Snyder make his movie? No, they tell David Ayer to reshoot because, like, maybe the problem with BVS was it was too dark, and then they have what do they do with Justice League? They cut it down even more.
Well, a lot of that, they did, but they were also trying to kind of cut it off at the pass, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The way, I mean, if you really go and look at how Warner's and DC Films handled everything post Batman v Superman on the second weekend, you can really see that they have no confidence in the property. I mean, because, first it was like Batman v Superman came out, $180 million, huge drop the second weekend, and then the reports the next Monday were like, okay, Zack Snyder is kind of no longer in control. Ben Affleck is now an executive producer on Justice League and will be overseeing the edit.
And then Jeff
Johns. I mean, I think Jeff Johns, he's not even going to get any credit for Aquaman or Shazam. For Green Light and those. Well, I think he did. I think he did good with those two films that he effectively was running.
If you know what happened, like with the Batman, there was like a bit of a power struggle between him and Ben Affleck, and Jeff won out, and that's a big reason why Ben Affleck kind of wanted to step back.
I haven't heard. I didn't hear that personally, but it would make some sense. I mean, obviously, Affleck probably wanted to take it a certain direction, and I would have. I still hold out hope in some weird alternate universe where Affleck is going to be able to come back at some point, and maybe not like right and direct, but definitely like old Batman, like direct and a star in it would be fantastic. But I mean, Kevin Tushihara, I was very glad that that he got Me Too'd out of Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. He got Me Too'd.
I was laughing because I did a video on it and my thumbnail said his reign is over, and it's, I mean, like, I don't know the guy personally. I can't speak to him as a person, but when I look at how Warner Brothers as a studio is run and how it handles its properties, I kind of just look at it and go, okay, someone here is definitely screwing up because and this is true. Did you know this? Warner's actually holds the highest market share of any studio, even more than Disney.
Wow.
And they still continuously find ways to mess it up, to muck it up.
Yeah.
And so when Justice League, when I heard about Zack's daughter and that tragedy and then Joss Whedon coming in, I thought, okay, it's a bit definitely tonally different of a person, but
he
maybe
also
he'll do it.
promised. Yeah, and they promised that he's just doing pickups. He's not changing the vision or anything. And what happens is totally different. Especially so when I found out how different the Snyder Cut was, and Kevin Smith's rundown of it on his channel when he first ran down like that list, it was not a complete list. It was not a complete rundown. We now know there was more stuff in the Snyder Cut, like a whole subplot with Lois Lane, which really ticks me off even more because like Amy Adams as Lois Lane, she's like now my favorite DC character, just the way Amy played her.
And she had like one real scene in Justice League that was it. That was
in the thirsty scene. Yeah, but it's like the thing is like when I saw her like in the Snyder shot where she goes to Clark and like hugs him and like gets him to calm down. That was a beautiful scene. I was like, I got tears in my eyes when I saw that for the first time. But then the thirsty scene replacing a whole beautiful subplot of her with Martha, with the Jimmy Olsen cop, there was a neighbor of hers in the apartment complex apparently. That was like listed in the IMDb credits, but she was cut out. But this whole subplot, and that really ticked me off even more. But again, that rundown of the Snyder Cut and what we lost is like, wow, this movie would have been so much better. It would have made a lot more sense. It would have tied in more with BVS. It would have had more payoff to the nightmare stuff. And that was like, that's it. I'm full on with this.
Even the fact that in Batman v Superman there was that 59-second clip where we see Steppenwolf at the very end, and it was like that was cut out of theatrical. And I had a buddy of mine who went and saw it when it came out theatrically, and he was like, oh man, like that was just, I don't even know what to make of that movie. Then I sent him that clip like the next then a few minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah, this just popped up online, Warner's just released this, and he watches that and he goes, oh my god, that would have made that made everything make sense now, at least in that regard. Like, why was that cut? And again, it was really about trying to, cut down the time. But then Tsujihara tried saying like, okay, let's do the hard cut for 2 hours. Let's try to, cut them off at the pass. And so if we can give a structured film in 2 hours with everything people want in it, then they're not going to complain about it. And that was the thing is
Yeah. And that's why I don't blame Joss Whedon too much. Now, to be clear, the Russian family scene was Joss Whedon. That was his fault and no one else's. Like he said he wanted to do that with the Avengers.
But it makes sense. It makes sense. Like,
yeah, I get it. You want to show people who are saved, but to keep cutting back to them over and over, I'm sure you could have cut out one of those moments and then included, I'll take that as a yes. What, the ring, that beautiful moment in the trailers that we were all expecting, and what happens? He snips that out. But aside from that Russian family stuff, everything else was Tsujihara saying, you got to cut it down to 2 hours. And so Joss had to reshoot so much in order to make it flow as a 2 hour film.
Well,
I can't really blame him.
If you look at what he reshot compared to what Snyder shot, I mean, for one, you got like Affleck was straight up, I think, drunk most of the time in the reshoots, or he was, because he had gained like a solid 10 pounds.
Yeah.
You could see it.
Face.
Like I was like, oh wow, this fat face Affleck. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Fat face Affleck. Yeah. Fat face Affleck. Bucktooth soups, and Aquaman having like different tattoos on his chest, and like Barry's hair is different, and Lois. Now, the thing is, Amy Adams was shooting Sharp Objects at the time, and in Sharp Objects, her hair is like has more blonde highlights in her or whatever. So apparently they put on this wig or whatever. So it's like her hair is like in the Whedon shots, her hair is like flat on top, curled on the sides, which doesn't make much why. But in the Snyder shots, her hair is more airy and flowing.
Okay.
And natural.
I've only watched it the one time. Yeah. I'm just like, it was good.
Yeah.
I own it. I own the damn thing because I was going to buy it, but I just haven't felt the need to go back. But I guess, I mean, we know that there was a lot of problems in regards to how they made this movie, but I guess it really boils down to then, because there's been a lot of pushback against the Snyder Cut over the span of the last year and a half. And I find it interesting that a lot of the people that seem to be pushing back against it are the ones who already traditionally do not like the DCEU. They do not like where it's gone, and that's kind of what they're hoping for, more of like a Marvel-esque reboot of the franchise, which is what I kind of figured they were doing when they brought in Joss Whedon.
Yeah. And honestly, to those people, what does it matter? You still have the theatrical cut that you like better, apparently.
No,
just release that other cut.
It's not. Yeah, it's the thing is though. But their argument, and this is where, and I've kind of backed this up as well, because it's just looking at the way that film edits are done. Now, I have said, and apparently I've been wrong on this, but okay, it maybe it's just my wording is wrong. But it's like when you look at Snyder at that event from a couple months ago, where he was asked about the Snyder Cut, and he said there's multiple cuts of the film.
He says, I have a bunch of them.
A bunch of them. And that's the thing. There's always going to be multiple cuts of the film from different stages of putting it through. And so that's probably more or less what he's referring to.
Maybe, but like he did make it a point, and he talked to the Comic Movie Marks about this. He make it a point to circle, like on that special poster for SnyderCon, he circled the 214 and pointed to it and says, that's it. And because 214, like 3.5 hours, basically, that's the cut that he's pointing to. And people have said, that's the sign that's how you will know whether or not Warner Brothers has released the actual Snyder Cut, if it's 214 minutes long, I think.
Well, but far as that is kind of, I get that's more of a theory, but to kind of like counter that, it's like you mentioned Kevin Smith earlier. Have you ever seen Dogma?
Unfortunately, no, but I want to because Kevin Smith. Yeah,
so it came out 20 years ago this fall.
Yeah.
And the original cut of that movie was 3 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
And so they chopped that movie down and they shot that's the entire cut. And if you get the special edition, or I guess now just the regular Blu-ray, you can find all 100 minutes of the deleted scenes are on that DVD. And that was what they cut out of his original shot. So it's like, again, that's where I don't take a lot of, I get the theory, but it's like they always whittle it down.
Yeah, it always comes down to just how complete was Zack's cut by the time he left.
If they're going into reshoots, I would argue probably I would say they had clearly they had a full cut of the film.
Yes.
Clearly they had a full, at least enough to get like the lockdown for the VFX to start working on a lot of that stuff. And and then the thing is, what you've got is probably a situation where, because again, a lot of the pushback I see always comes from like, maybe he's trying to manage expectations. Maybe it's trying to, I still think they're kind of being a little bit jerky when they talk about it. But what you've got is, they go, if they release a Snyder Cut, we won't have the completed graphics. Like, why would Warner's go back and spend $100 million or whatever, or however million it's going to be to update the graphics to do this? Because would it actually end up being profitable for them in the end?
Well, there are two things that we know flat out beyond a shadow of a doubt. We know this from inside scoops from people who've worked with Snyder, like Larry Fong, the cinematographer, with Jay Oliva, who worked with him on storyboards, and they all say the same thing. This is how Zack works. He always shoots the heavy VFX, heavy scenes first, and when he does that, he automatically he sends all his scenes straight to the editing room. And at the end of shooting, he goes to the editing room to edit the scenes to where he wants it. And the reason he shoots the VFX heavy scenes first is that once you have the scene that he wants, he right away sends it to the VFX artist.
Okay.
So with that in mind, now two, we know from Larry Fong's report that Zack had the movie in picture lock by February, at least before February, because in February he was doing ADR. And Larry Fong pointed out, that means we've already achieved picture lock and we're already this far along. So with that in mind, Justice League, also the third one, and this is what Jay Oliva said. Jay Oliva said that, a big reason that Zack Snyder goes to the editing right away is that he wants to see from the beginning whether or not they need to do pickups, whether or not there's something in the scene that needs tweaking or pickups. And then he does it during production. Is that even if the studio schedules for reshoots and pickups later on, he's like, Zack can say, guys, I already did it. So with those three things in mind, he was in picture lock, shooting was done, editing was done the way he wanted. Now, as for VFX, even leaving aside that he sent the VFX heavy scenes to the artist right away, Justice League, he ended shooting in October of 2016. And he stepped down from the movie May of 2017. And that's 7 months. Joss Whedon comes in June, and the movie comes out in November. That's 6 months, but let's say 5.5 because we have to have it done before we shoot out. Now, 5.5 months of new screenwriting, new production, and new post production versus 7 months of pure post production. I'm pretty sure Zack was pretty far along by the time he stepped down.
Well, I would assume he definitely, because if I recall, well, there's an article here from Vanity Fair that says that Joss here was also very much micromanaged by the studio quite a bit, and that was clearly Sujihara who was behind that.
Sujihara and his sidekick Emmerich. So,
Emmerich, he's been there forever. So I think that's a big part of it too. But if I recall, like they announced Joss Whedon was going to come in to write the reshoots, right? And then that was before Snyder's daughter had, or was it? I could be wrong. I mean, I know there's like an March and April was when like that whole thing came to be.
He was brought in for Batgirl at the time, but the first I heard about him being brought in for Justice League was after Snyder stepped down. But there has been talk that part of the writers' room to talk about how to like tweak some things, like with the script for Justice League, was that Whedon was may have been part of that. I don't know. But I will say though, I did hear some things that did, oddly enough, when I heard that Joss Whedon was like may have been part of that writers' room to help, like, maybe tweak the script a little bit about before, I instantly thought of the scene in that very first trailer where Diana and Bruce are talking in the Batcave. He said, "He'll fight with us, more or less, more or less." And that seems so Whedon, and yet that's not in the Whedon cut. I found it so weird.
Yeah, looking through the Wikipedia here. So May he came on in, and then there must have been something big here because they were going to do 2 months of reshoots and costing $25 million to do it. And I would argue that a fair amount of that was, I mean, if you go back and you look, like all the interpersonal group scenes are all redone.
Yeah.
Those are all redone. And I do love that people are trying to argue that Joss Whedon was somehow able to magically capture the same visual stylings as Zack Snyder. And it's like, no, entirely different thing there.
No.
But I mean, like so let's kind of, I guess, we know that the Snyder Cut, to some extent, it definitely exists. But I guess like there is always that question, the reality of it. Will it ever, will it ever come out? And the way it looks right now is like Warner's, actually, I don't know. Warner's, I think, should consider it.
Yeah.
Given what happened with Aquaman hitting $1 billion, but Shazam kind of crashing, even though it did well Shazam, enough. I love Shazam. It was great.
Yeah.
But it just didn't. I mean, there's clearly a lack of faith that audiences have with the DCEU, and that comes from the constant tweaking. But
yeah, and Jason Momoa is clearly on board. He said repeatedly he wants a Snyder Cut, and that Aquaman leads directly from a scene late in the Snyder Cut.
Yeah,
it flows right into it. So there you go, and he's big on it. Ray Fisher is big on it. Kieran Hines, who played Steppenwolf, is big on it. Ray Porter, who voiced Darkseid, clearly.
Yeah, no, I think it's possible that Warner's they just don't know what the hell they're doing in regards to this. It's why maybe they thought that bringing in Joss Whedon would be the better call. Get the Marvel fanboys to come on in. But the difference is that there's always that fundamental difference between people who started watching Iron Man to get to where Endgame is and all those films. But even with the DCEU, it's like one of the biggest problems, and this is where I think we get into more of a fanboy debate, is people don't like the deconstruction of Superman. They hated a lot of fans did not like Zack Snyder's portrayal of Superman, even though I feel that it was the most human version of Superman that we'd seen on the big screen yet.
That's why I loved it so much. I mean, I liked the Christopher Reeve films, but most particularly, as far as whether I love them or not, I loved the first half of the first Christopher Reeve movie, where he was his most human, the most struggling with who am I. And Zack brought that mood made that mood the whole idea of Man of Steel, where he's struggling to find out who is he.
Yeah.
And
apparently you can't do that. Apparently you can't do that.
Yeah, and people don't realize this. Zack was leading into him becoming the classic, like, hopeful leader and superhero that we all know and love. It shows how Clark gets forged in fire in order to become that. He's been through the hard knocks of life, and he's come out on top. And to me, that is far more inspirational than having him hopeful and optimistic from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, that we've been there, that he's been there like we have, and he came out on top triumphing, and that's hopeful. That is optimistic for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I went into Man of Steel, like I said, wanting to not like it, ended up really loving it. It became one of my top 5 films for that year. And then same with the extended cut of Batman v Superman. Really, I think really just kind of knocked it out of the park. You know what, it's like, okay, so I kind of want to talk about the fundraising campaign itself.
Yeah,
because we could gush a lot about the movie.
Yeah.
Reading through it, I think you guys are doing some good stuff here, but I do kind of feel like, and this is just my take on it, that the language is a little bit aggressive.
Yes. Okay. No, let me say this. I'm sorry if you want to go on.
No, I'm just saying it's in the.
Yeah.
I just say that because as a person who I do cover this stuff, and it's like I've seen. There's been one of the reasons why I kind of was like rolling my eyes a bit of the aggressiveness of it is because when I see on Twitter, I have seen a lot of a lot of Snyder Cut people on Twitter being like absolute dickheads.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just real quick, I don't know if you ever heard of the Gamergate movement.
Yeah, I follow Gamergate.
So I was like, I guess very close to the center of that. And for a couple of years, there's a 2-year FBI investigation into Gamergate that proved that a lot of it was third-party trolls.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of our biggest problems with it was like, we know that there are the trolls, but we can't do anything about it. Well,
here's the thing. As far as the more obnoxious members of the movement, it may surprise you. I really agree with you on them, and I've been frustrated right along with you. Now, what I was doing with that statement, because I was the one who wrote the statement. Will Rollins published it, and I wrote it. What I was doing, I'll be honest, I was actually pretty surprised when you reacted to that paragraph the way you did, because I was like, well, I don't get it. What's wrong? Because the funny thing is, we actually did tone it down a little bit. I actually had more like references to crusades in it too, because like our crusade, because like one of my like signature lines when I post a big tweet to the movement is "Our crusade is blessed as our cause is just," and I put in Dave's Volt, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That one that might be you may want to.
It might be.
Well,
I didn't.
It's because
we took it out because I know, sorry, the all right stuff, but like we took it out because like there are a lot of like members of the movement who aren't Christians, so aren't Crusaders and all that.
It's not even that. There's a video game called For Honor that came out a couple years ago, and it's a great game. But there's like the Deus Volt was a big part of that, and a lot of the I'm not too sure where you stand politically and whatever, but a lot of the people that write
the alt-right.
A lot of people that write for the blogs are very left leaning, and like I live on the West Coast, so it's like there's like I get that mentality, but the big problem though is that they took Deus Volt and they tried arguing that it was an alt-right call sign,
which it's not,
and so it's like that's the whole thing is like from a PR perspective.
I know, and we took it out for that we took it for many reasons like that. But as far as the way I wrote it, look, you have to keep this in mind. I did not write this statement for the bloggers or for anyone outside the movement. I wrote it for the people who would be donating, and that is the movement. Now, and I wrote it in a way, I basically wrote it kind of sort of manifesto-esque as a way of like getting people excited to donate. And I've joked around with Chris Wong on this. It was basically, if you've seen that Simpsons gif of the guy going, "Shut up and take my money," and that was the mood I was trying to do. Like get people excited, get them motivated that we're going to do this.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's some people might call me, like an optics asshole. I am an optics asshole.
I'm all about optics.
I'm all about optics too. So it's like in this world, the thing is like in this particular world, there are a lot of fans that would probably be known and come to it and everything else, but you still have to play to the larger audience. And it's and that's I know that you didn't want to write it for like the bloggers. I mean, but then again, but look at how you said earlier that when it came to the suicide prevention donations, where that was no one mentioned it because it was it was halfway through the statement
maybe
that it was there, and it's like people are reading they're just reading the statement to get the information, and then from there, because the bloggers aren't going to sit there and look at the perks or level ones, like they're just not going to care, because that's just not part of like the story for them. Is all about crafting the story. And so another thing too, and I did mention this in my video, was there was that Release the Snyder Cut petition where that guy like became so absolutely tyrannical towards the end of it.
I
mean, it was like, it was just like, holy crap, dude! Like, you get what 400,000 people like this thing.
So I do not approve of that.
No, I don't think you did. I don't think you did. But I mean, it's like, but that was a thing. That's like, there's
exactly
this, and it's like, I also, and I don't know if you have anything to do with this or not. 6 months ago, a guy named Charles Buddha from Bronx started a GoFundMe for the Snyder Cut, and it was about for the raising money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So there's been, and so again, there's like confusion potentially, because when I Google, Release the Snyder Cut GoFundMe, this is the first one that pops up. Yours doesn't even pop up.
Wow.
So how you find it is you have to. This is the first one that pops up. This one that raised like $1,800, roughly, or I think it raised how much here? 1,800 out of 7. Hit its goal.
Wow.
And that's the first one that pops up. And then underneath it are the news articles talking about your fundraiser. So people are clicking on. That's the whole point. It's like for like trying to get the word out there is. When you Google it, you're not even finding it. So that's something to just pay attention to, I guess. But it's like when you have, sorry, I'm gonna go ahead.
It's like, well, to be fair, we've raised a heck of a lot more than them. So I guess it's already.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But it's like for people who are coming in who are not part of it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that you still want to reach out to other people. The idea here is you want to raise the money, you want to raise awareness, and that is where like the people coming in who talk about it are gonna.
And I do see. And I do see your point. I mean, as far as like maybe we should have like mentioned the suicide prevention thing earlier. And I think we'll look into that. I will say, like, going to what your other problem was in the in that other video. You mentioned like you were concerned about the references to like we won't be ignored anymore, that we're in here for that we're getting bigger and bigger.
It's a little strong in the language. Language.
You did. I was a little. I found it a little weird. Like, you didn't like the Obi-Wan joke.
I might have just missed it. You have to understand
the Obi-Wan joke. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That was Obi-Wan.
No, I mean, I know that in general, but it's like when the way I view things is in this particular situation, when you're saying we will not be ignored, if you strike me down, we'll only, I mean, it has it's such bombastic language. And I see what you're trying to say with it now, but it's like the way that the average person might look at that, considering, and I'm not trying to like draw comparisons here, but like, look at the Christchurch shooter. I mean, his manifesto, it's very bombastic, very in your face, very internet culture related. And it's so my perspective of it coming into these situations is always like, like, well, you got to get people's attention, obviously, but at the same time, when you put it as an us against them scenario, which is kind of what it feels like, you run the risk of alienating potential donators.
Well, this is why I put in that whole paragraph about us not being ignored. There has been a growing concern among the entire movement as to why Warner Brothers isn't even addressing this call for the Snyder Cut. They haven't said anything negative or positive. Now, for a while, we took this as a good thing. We said, oh, well, if they're not saying anything negative, then that's a good thing, that we can, then they might still be playing something. But it's been like over a year and a half, and there's been some inside scoops that essentially they're trying to outweight us and kind of hoping that they view us as a vocal but very small minority, and they're hoping that that if they just wait us out, that we'll fade away in time. And that's what I was addressing. I was addressing to the movement, okay, this is a big thing. This is a way of proving to them that that's not going to happen. And I'm addressing that fear in order to get us saying, hey, don't worry, we got this covered.
Okay. No, I mean, I get that. I get that. I just feel like our current our current internet
Yeah.
culture. And I
Well,
cover a lot of this stuff. I have for years, and so it's, you know, it's like I see it, and I think as I care about this as well. I want to see it released. I
yeah.
definitely want to see the
As far as
the stuff
yeah,
come out, but it's, you
yeah.
know, I also don't want to see it get totally crapped on
Mm.
by, you know, by people that that comes across as that people can use as a weapon against you, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
However, I mean, the sad truth of the matter is you could probably argue it in the other
Yeah.
way, and it would work for you depending on which audience you're trying to
Yeah.
bring
Yeah, I
to the
get.
table.
I mean, we've already raised $15,000, and I got to tell you, we kept our group, like the Project Comic Con crew. We've all constantly been astonished at how much we've raised and how quickly we've raised them. Like that level 1, the 2-hour banner, we rate like what from the moment like, when we set up that GoFundMe and we set up level 1, we raised the money for that in a day, a single day
Yeah.
for level 1. Level 2, we raised the money for that billboard that's on the highway going into Comic-Con. We raised the money for that billboard in a couple of weeks. And we're always like astonished. We kept getting shocked at how quickly we raised the money and how much we've raised. Number 3, like again, a couple of weeks, we just raised money for a half-page ad in the Hollywood Reporter's special Comic-Con special. And that's astonished us.
Well, see, that's
So,
actually that is definitely like those kind of in the real world
yeah.
movements. Those are good because
Mhm.
that has shown to be effective. You know, I mean, there were guys that were there was a group of people that raised the money to do rehire James Gunn, put up billboards
Yeah.
next to Disneyland,
Yeah.
and then closer to Walt Disney Studios in
Mhm.
in Burbank, and you know, eventually, well, I don't think that had. I think that had some play into Gunn being rehired because there was a big fan support. It wasn't like, you know, toss him out to the side. So these things can ultimately happen, but I mean, they take time.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
take
they
a lot
do.
of time.
And I was shocked at how quickly, and in the meantime, I was shocked at how quickly we got our stuff. I mean, so the point is, I'm pretty sure, like, I remember when I first pitched the first draft of the opening statement in to the group, they all said, "Wow, this really got my blood pumping." And I said, "Well, it's like the Simpsons gift, shut up and take my money." He says, "Well, that certainly succeeded." So I'm reasonably sure that the let's say energetic tone of what I wrote did motivate people, did get people excited to donate.
No,
So
and that's, I mean, clearly that's obvious because people
Mhm.
talked about it, and there is a big you know, there is a big amount of people out there that do support
Yeah.
this, and you'll definitely find them at Comic-Con. Now I guess my question is, are you guys planning at all on trying to get into Hall H in order to ask a question to anyone at
we
DC?
The funny thing is, well, we have we have like a bunch of boots on the ground in the crew of people who are going, and we've been talking about that a lot. And here's the thing: you mentioned the problem with being too aggressive. There has been, from the beginning of putting this together, there has been this long debate over whether or not people should, we go into Hall H, and B, we lead a chant and do Release the Snyder Cut chant. And people are saying that, like, oh, maybe the reason that we haven't been doing so well is that last Comic-Con we didn't do anything, and so they thought we weren't there because we weren't vocal about it. Well, we more or less, like, there was this long debate. Said, no, we're not the bad guys, like you were saying. We're not trolls. We're not angry militants. We're not crazy. We have to be professional. We have to be civil. We have to come out on top looking like the good guys. So finally, and there was this long debate. Says, oh, no. Says, no, we should be vocal. We should be vocal. Finally, we hammered out this compromise. Okay, those of us that are going into Hall H now, and I said, and I laid this out. There are two things to keep in mind. First, we need to make sure there would be enough of us going to Hall H. So basically, send the word out, find boots on the ground, find people who are going to Comic-Con or part of the movement, and let's bring them in. It says, now who's going to Hall H, who's not? Those who are going to Hall H, get together and plan this out. And number 2, and more importantly, do not chant during the panels. We are not hecklers. We are not doing that. If we're going to chant, it's going to be in those breaks between the panels. It has to be then.
That's a way. I mean, yeah, you could, or I mean, really just do it like during like a Q&A thing or something like that, like, and that would be, well, because it's really more like the idea there is in Hall H, because I was in
Q&A
Hall
to
H.
ask about.
Yeah, and the Q&A is like, if as long as you're respectful about it, it's generally okay. I mean,
I
was in there when the guy asked Megan Fox if she'd be interested in being in a sex tape, right? Like, I was in the room when that dude got shanked in the eye with a pen. There's some crazy moments of Hall H, but for the most part, it's just really vapid, innocuous questions that most people tune out of. But if you can get in there and I mean, really, the best course of action, at least my take on it, would be whoever the boots on ground is in the morning, waiting to go into Hall H, like just kind of start having someone walk up and down the line and go like, hey, at this time, we're getting, well, and the reason why it'd be difficult to do, because it's usually Warner's is 10 a.m. on the Saturday. It's the first panel of the day. And they have so much that they rush through, the 2-hour panel is like insane. So there's, that would be your time would be like leading into it, I guess. Anyway.
And in Friday and Saturday and all that, our boots on the ground who are going to be going around, and to the folks sitting in the line and to everyone else throughout the convention, we've got flyers. We've got several like different styles of flyers, and we're handing them out to people. We're going to hand them out, and like people sitting in line, they're going to want something to read. We give them something to read. There you go.
Now, are you guys at all associated with the one woman, Fiona, who did are you guys associated with her at all?
Yes. In fact, she was one of the first people that I brought in, because she's essentially the leader of the movement. She's essentially the queen of the movement.
Well, because she claims she's not, like, I've reached out to her before asking if I could interview her, because I liked her website, and she was like, no, it's not about me. And I thought that was kind of funny,
that's one of the most awesome things about her.
She seems very nice. She seems very nice.
Yeah, because she's so humble. It's like, it reminds me of Aquaman. You think that you're not a king, but that you're not worthy to be a king, but that's exactly why you are worthy.
No, that makes sense. That's a good line. We should probably wrap it up there, because I do hear my child off in the distance needing to be tended to. But Eric, thank you so much for being here, and
thank you so much for having me.
And this good conversation.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing where this goes. I will be at Comic-Con. I'll be roaming around. Definitely, I'll be in the line for Hall H on Saturday.
Woo!
Because I'm not missing that. Well, that and Marvel, because I want to see what the Phase 4 plans are.
Oh wow,
that's always the hardest day. Saturday is always the worst day. It's always the worst damn day. So if any of your guys see me, come over, say hey, and I'll be looking for that as well. So maybe we can see what's gonna happen.
Hey, you'll be seeing us, because we'll be in uniform. We have uniforms. We have a special logo with the dark side eye, like that logo that you saw on the GoFundMe.
Yeah,
that's going to be the big icon on our uniforms, if you will, our shirts, if you will.
Oh,
a little bit of a parody. Yeah, and some of them are going to be like, yellow letters, red letters, blue lettering. Like, you'll know us.
All right. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out, and I'll go up and get a selfie. So all right. Well, thank you so much, man. And to everyone else, you leave your comments and questions below, and we'll definitely we should let's retouch after con.
Absolutely.
And discuss how everything went. So that would be good too. But all right, everyone, thank you so much, and have yourself a great day.